So these factors have an influence not just in the political decision-making that we make on profoundly political issues, but also the more general ways we think about and understand the world around us. So we have a recent study, and this is unpublished, so don't believe any of it, but we have a recent study where we went back to a classic paradigm in the world of judgment and decision-making, which is a framing effect. Framing things in one way or another changes how it is we see and understand it. So what I want to do for this is you can read the top here. Imagine the United States is preparing for the outbreak of an unusual disease, which is expected to affect 600 people. 2 alternative programs to fight the disease are proposed. Now, everyone on this side of the room, when I put up the 2 proposals, A and B, I want you to read the 2 on the right side and make a quick decision about which one you support before you look at the left side. Right. Everyone here, you read the left side, make a quick decision about A or B before you read the right side, and commit to your A or B. Okay, here they are. So give them a read. Okay, everyone decided? All right, so how many support A? Okay, some over here, none over here. How many support B? Okay, how many are uncommitted? A lot. Okay, so there was more B support here. It looked like more A support here. All right, so what they see in this research is that in this paradigm, in this approach, program A is the usually preferred approach. Whereas with this description, program B is the one that's usually preferred. Now, if you've read all of them at this point, you recognize that in fact they are identical. Right? Program A is identical between the 2 in terms of its consequences. Program B is identical between the 2 in terms of its consequences. The only difference is in the framing, whether it's framed as a gain or a loss. Right? When you frame things as a gain, people tend to go for the sure thing. When you frame things as a loss, people are more willing to pursue a risky option. It's called a risky shift. And the basic idea is that people are risk averse. They don't like to take chances. And they don't like to take chances because of the uncertainties it introduces. So we don't take chances when we're thinking about in terms of gains. Well, I know I'm going to gain 200 here. I'm going to save 200 people, but so why take the chance on losing everybody? Right? But faced with a loss, if I'm thinking about, well, God, I don't want to lose 400 people, why don't I go ahead and take a chance? And maybe I'll save everyone. Right? That simple change of frame, simple way of thinking about it differently, fundamentally changes what it is that people tend to support, the way in which they lean. So that's not stuff that we invented newly. That's classic work in our field. Our approach was to say, well, is there an ideological difference in terms of how people wrestle with this? If it's really, the risk aversion is really rooted in uncertainties, in fear of the unknown, of taking those chances, then perhaps we'll get a political difference in how much people shift their responses. So we have here on the x-axis the gain frame of gaining something and the loss frame, losing something. On the y-axis, it's off the side here, is percent choosing the risk-averse option, the sure thing. And what we find with liberals is that when you're faced with a gain, you're more likely to pursue the sure thing, right? Just as that original demonstration suggested. Loss frame, we're less likely to do that. With conservatives, that difference is dramatically enhanced. So conservatives, if it's true that uncertainty is particularly of concern, then they should be more sensitive to the risky shift, and that is what we showed. We added another condition where instead of giving the clear probabilities in the risky option, right, instead of saying it's a 1/3 chance or a 2/3 chance that this or that will happen, instead we said this or this will happen, but we don't know what the probability will be. So we increased the uncertainty. We made it exceptionally uncertain as to whether one should pursue that risky strategy. And by doing that manipulation, we wiped out the difference between liberals and conservatives. What that suggests is that it's not that liberals are unconcerned with uncertainty, they're just willing to tolerate more of it. And when you put them in a situation where there is clear uncertainty, clear risks, then they'll respond just the same as conservatives do to similar scenarios. 3 minutes, okay. So there are a variety of ways. Mazarine mentioned a couple of examples, but a variety of ways in our investigations of people's attitudes towards different topics that have no apparent relation to politics still elicit a divergence between liberals and conservatives. And so we've used self-report measures of attitudes and also implicit measures, just people's automatic responses of favorability or unfavorability to different concepts. And we find that there's lots of variation in the everyday things we look at, right? Apple's focus on think different, well, that's an appeal to liberals. It's not an appeal to conservatives. Nerds, more liberal. Jocks, more conservative, right? Jazz, it's fusion, it's unpredictable. Where is it going? I don't know. Conservatives want none of it. Teen pop, we know exactly what we're going to get at every moment we get it. Right? Denzel versus Tom Cruise and 50 Cent versus Britney Spears. We see these divides, although all of this was collected before Britney and Tom went, ooh, ooh. So it's possible that these things would have shifted now. But the point is that these interpretive frames, the ideologies, the belief systems that we have about how things are different and why they are different, are influencing our perception, our judgment, our understanding, what we think of and how we make sense of our everyday environments. And so without that, we wouldn't have that overall understanding. But with it, we have the constraints of not easily jumping out of it, not easily accepting evidence that is contrary to the way that we're understanding it, and trying our best to ignore it so that we can maintain these simple structures that we use in order to make sense of our everyday environment. And so that is really the end point of my presentation. We have a field where it's hard to see those things, and by applying some way, some information, we can then extract some information and make sense of it more easily. Thanks for the time.